ready to talk hockey. Streaming from the Oilers Live studio. Subscribe or follow today.
Hey, this is Oilers Live coming at you. We are live on Edmonton Sports Talk. You can hear us on TuneIn and iHeartRadio. We're also live on Heavy Hockey's YouTube channel and on Facebook and on Oilers Live at Twitter. And joining me tonight, I've got a surprise guest appearance from Bob the goalie. We're always happy to have you. Welcome. And
Thank you.
our regular guest, the Oilers fanatic, also known as Patrick. How's it going tonight, fellas?
Pretty good, Ryan. How are you?
Good. Better now that awkward intro is out of the way.
Yeah, there you go.
I had to try to copy Michael a little bit on his show, even since I'm kind of taking over the hosting / producing duties tonight. Michael's not going to be with us. He's got some personal things going on, but we're expecting Dash at some point. We're hoping, probably just running a little late. Might have just got tied up with some stuff. But for now, you're stuck with us. So we'll get the show going with some thoughts on what was a rough weekend for the Edmonton Oilers. We'll start with you, Bob. Give us your thoughts on the weekend's games and what's going on.
Well, I'm glad that we're not in 4K because those games stunk pretty badly here. So they laid a pretty big pile there on the weekend. It was tough to watch. They seem to be just sluggish coming out of the break, that's for sure. I mean, I'm actually just absolutely appalled at the amount of giveaways. Like, a stunning stat for me was just that first game against Philly. We gave them 19 high danger scoring chances for. Philly, one of the bottom dwelling teams, got 19 scoring chances for. We look soft, we look slow, we look disengaged. I mean, besides a couple of players like Draisaitl still playing Draisaitl away, he's trying to carry us as best he can. And I thought the only other guy that is saved from any kind of wrath for me out of the last three games was, I thought Emberson's actually held his own for the most part. Everybody else, they've had maybe had one or two good games in there or three bad games, but there's always been one game at least of those three that everybody else has been struggling on.
Absolutely. Like there's not much we can point to on the roster that's saying, hey, good job, pal. Right? Like it was a rough weekend for most guys all around. Patrick, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd say, I've been saying in my videos that really the only two bright spots for me, Emberson, to your point, Bob, has looked good as well, but I think really Leon Draisaitl and I think Matt Savoy has been excellent since coming up from the AHL. He's given the Oilers some speed up front. And I'm pretty much just excited to watch him right now because everyone else is giving us absolutely nothing. Pretty much Connor McDavid's a -12 since February 5th. So it's not just a couple guys, it's right from the top on down. So there's a lot to work on for this team. And I don't know what the answer is. Like we know they were battling the flu before the Four Nations break, but it's been a couple weeks now. So that really shouldn't be an issue anymore, you wouldn't think. So I don't know what's confidence or what it is, but they got to get it figured out here because they got two more tough opponents coming up in Florida and Carolina. And it's only a 4-game losing streak right now, but a couple more bad performances and it can get dark real fast here. So hopefully we can get a better effort tomorrow night.
But it's a season high 4-game losing streak. Like this is, I think that could be a concern because we're not used to this season yet, right? I think the flu thing, there's still some merit there in regards to maybe a guy like Ekholm who still sounds rough, and maybe doesn't have the flu anymore, but he's still recovering from it. Like if it's a really bad flu, like it takes a while for you to get your lungs back and what have you. Matt Savoy, fantastic. Except I actually thought he sucked pretty bad in the Washington game, but he's not. He's not the only guy, so he's basically just fitting in with the rest of the team in that game. But the other games, I think he's been very strong and very exciting to watch. Unfortunately, we're 0-3 with him in the lineup, so send him away. No, I'm just kidding.
Trade him.
That's what I'm worried they were going to do. Blame it on him.
And I would have to look at his ice time, but once they started loading up Connor and Leon towards the end of the Tampa game, I know he didn't see quite as much ice, which is unfortunate. Like in a runaway game like that, you might as well get the kid some minutes, right? Like that's a little frustrating. But yeah, I think you guys are right on Savoy. I think he was the most exciting thing to watch on the weekend. Like Leon played pretty well as well. Keeps his goal scoring streak alive.
Mhm.
Couple power play goals to open the scoring in the last couple, and he keeps padding that league leading goal total. It's awesome to see. But Savoy was I was impressed by Savoy for the most part. Got a few good scoring chances, made some great plays on the wall, especially for being or for how small he is. And Leon's trying to find him, right? Like he used the passing option on a lot of plays because he's smart and he knows where to be. So he's got that going for him. I was noticing in the Tampa game there were a couple plays where he just, I think his mind was moving faster than what his hands could do. Like it just the brain and the hands weren't quite working the way they should have been. Like there's one move where he's playing with Connor, he's trying to go do a little behind the back drop pass, and he kind of fumbled it and was waving his stick around behind him as he was trying to make that play. Didn't connect and he lost it. And then the play where he got the scoring chance off that weird carom off the glass, puck's rolling, but it came right to his stick in the slot, and he couldn't even get a real good high quality shot away. Easy save for Vasilevsky. And so I can tell like he's maybe got a little bit of nerves. Like once he gets that first one, I think he'll be fine. But overall, definitely excited about Savoy.
Yep.
Yeah,
For
absolutely.
for 2 to 3 games, I was for sure. Again, like Washington's throwaway game kind of thing because everybody kind of stank shit the bed there. But yeah, like for a guy his size, for his first NHL point, like he knocks a guy off the puck on the forecheck that's quite a bit taller, bigger than him, and dishes it out to Leon for a nice. Like what a great first point. Like that's just an overall great play.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. What would you guys think he? I mean, he's looked good with Leon Draisaitl. Would you try him with Connor McDavid more next game?
Be interested to give that a look and just see, but my
Yeah,
gut's telling me I think Savoy is a good fit with Leon
yeah,
for whatever reason. Like I haven't seen Savoy play much. I just think their games mesh well together. Um, but you got him up here, and this is a trial run, right? So you might
yeah.
as well give him a look and see what happens. Like what better time than now? You got to try something new. What you're doing ain't working, so why not give him a look on Connor's line?
I wouldn't mind then maybe throwing him on as part of the nuclear option late in the game. How he does with Connor
Yeah,
and Leon out there.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, absolutely. He's got some good hockey IQ and knows where to be. I think he knows to just kind of stay out of the way and try to get open.
To your point, though, Lottie, like with him and Drysdale together, I think because Leon is looking for him, and they are starting to create a little chemistry. I don't think you want to really disrupt that too much. So as much as it might be nice to see Savoy have a chance with McDavid, right now, just let's get this kid be comfortable with maybe at least one consistent line mate, and what a line mate to be consistent with Leon Draisaitl, right? And
Mm-hmm.
maybe that'll bring out some parts of his game. That'll give him a bit more confidence at NHL level, and then we can start seeing how he deals with some of the guys.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Bobby. I don't give him too much too fast. I think, yeah, just get him comfortable with one guy. That makes sense. And I'm just glad he's getting a top 6 opportunity. I was
Yeah.
worried they were gonna put him somewhere in the bottom 6 and not really give him an opportunity. So I'm just glad they are starting him in the top 6.
Yeah, and I would share that sentiment as well. Like playing him 7 to 10 minutes a night on the fourth line isn't going to do any favors for him. Like this
Yeah.
kid, he's a top 10 draft pick. He's got top 6 written all over him. So if you're going to see what you got in the kid, you might as well put him in that spot and try to put him in a spot where he can succeed. And even if you do send him back down at the trade deadline or just afterwards, then he leaves on a high note, right? Like he doesn't feel like the coach doesn't have trust in him. The organization doesn't trust him. He doesn't feel too frustrated at his situation. It's just that was a fun opportunity for me. I'm going to learn from that, and I'm going to go back to the A all excited and ready to keep playing. So,
Right.
which of the 3 games do you guys think was the worst game? All of them were pretty bad, but which one was the worst in your guys' opinion?
I'd go with Washington.
I think I agree with that one.
Yeah.
Like Philly was the one where they're playing a lesser team. And it's always disappointing to lose to a bottom tier team. But you could use the excuse of, there's some of the guys coming back from their beach, getting their skating legs going, what have you. A couple of guys are tired from, foreign nations, whatever excuse you want to use. But then that Washington game is the one where you're like, okay, it's time to get down to business. And it was just same old, same old.
No, it just felt like they were throwing out the red carpet there for Ovechkin that game. He was just basically the story of that game, and good for him and all that stuff. But you're supposed to be there to show up and play a hockey game too, and it looks like they just folded the tent and let Washington completely take that game over. I think that was the most disappointing one to watch for sure.
I think you can make an argument for all 3 of them. The Washington one was
Yeah.
definitely disappointing, right? We're trying to be one of the top teams in the league. Washington is right there right now, and I mean, you got Ovechkin who's trying to chase down Wayne Gretzky's goal scoring record, right? So he did most of his damage in Edmonton, right? There's that association between Gretzky and the Oilers, right? So you'd think that maybe they'd put up a little bit more of a fight in trying to stop Ovi from getting his goal scoring record, but nope, let him get the hat trick. Didn't put up much resistance all the way through. But I think I'm just for being different and for the sake of argument, I'm going to argue for the Tampa game because coming out of the Four Nations break, you got a weekend back-to-back matinee games. You were bad in the Philly game. Things happen. Washington's a really tough opponent. It's a back-to-back, no time to rest. It's like you blink and all of a sudden the sky is falling, right? But then you get Monday off and you get a little bit of time to breathe. And then you come back on Tuesday against another high quality opponent that you got to be ready for. And the same things were happening. Dangerous chances coming off the rush, weak goals against. We're questioning some of the same players coming out of this game that we've been questioning for most of the season. It's like the narratives haven't really changed as a result of that game, right? I was hoping for a response on Tuesday, and we didn't get it. So that I think was disappointing to me. Like, you got slapped in the face a couple times. Okay, you get a day off to breathe and recover. Now how are you going to respond? And that's how they responded. So that was disappointing.
Well,
Yeah.
like you mentioned, you can make an argument for any 3 of those games. Obviously, they laid an egg in all 3 of them. But yeah, to your point there in that Tampa game, my biggest thing was like after the first 2 games where the giveaways were so prevalent, you're thinking that maybe in the 3rd game here they're going to try and keep it simple. And what happens? Kapanen, right in the neutral zone, just tries to make some little, bounce around defender, and there's an odd man rush back right off the bat. Giveaway right off the bat. Kapanen gets benched the game before that. He wants to make an impression. I understand that, but you can't force an issue when your whole team is already struggling with giveaways at that point.
Well, and to Jeff's point in the chat there, why is Jeff Skinner in the press box? Yeah, he just scored the game before, and then they sit him the next game. Like, I understand he doesn't do everything perfectly. He's got his defensive deficiencies and stuff like that, but that's how you reward guys for who, when they're struggling offensively. I guess they did get 3 goals in a couple of those games, but they're still giving up way too many. And when you got a guy that's scoring for you, you don't reward him the next game by sitting him down. I don't get what their treatment of Jeff Skinner at all.
There's got to be an underlying story there or something, because we have 6 guys that are in double-digit goals, and 2 of them play bottom 6 minutes, Perry and Skinner. And Skinner, the guy who has speed and he had some defensive liabilities, what have you. But if we're looking for offense in certain areas, we have 11 goals sitting on the bench with him, or sitting in the press box,
something like that. Yeah. No, I understand he's not a perfect player, and I don't think we've discussed this before that Chris Knobloch, I don't think, was a huge fan of him from day one before he even met him, but he's a guy that is producing when he's given the opportunity here as of late, and to bench him again or throw him in the press box just does not make any sense to me.
And I haven't really seen his defensive game be that liable the last couple. Like he had a couple of really good back checks and what have you. Maybe there's certain plays that I'm not picking up on, but when he's out there, he's been noticeable on the forecheck and on the back check. So I don't know if there's
I feel
a
like
personality issue there or a chemistry issue in the dressing room or something. I have no idea. Purely speculation, but it's kind of mind-boggling to have him up in the press box watching.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you guys on that. I, again, Skinner's one of those guys that should be top 6 or bust. If he's not if he's not in your top 6, then what's he really doing for you? And I was going to say the same thing there, Patrick. Like we have evidence of Knobloch not being a big fan of Skinner's from before day one, right? Even before they signed him, when they were discussing signing him. There's video of him on the drop being like arguing against Skinner and his defensive metrics, and kind of like biting his lip as his name was being brought up. So I think there's been an obvious lack of trust between Knobloch and Skinner, and it looked like playing hardball and benching him and scratching him was kind of working, because he did turn his defensive game around for a little while there. Like Bob noted the 2 big back checks that he made that were like obvious, but I feel like the underlying stats on Skinner have been pretty good in the new year. So yeah, I find it puzzling as well. Like I feel like Janmark's a guy that can come in and out of the lineup. Kapanen's a guy that can come in and out. Connor Brown, what's he been doing lately? Right, he can probably come in and out of the lineup. And so there's a few other guys that you could justify benching over Jeff Skinner.
Well, especially if you're not even going to entertain moving him at the deadline. Like Stan Bowman was saying earlier, like they haven't even brought up the topic of asking him to waive his no trade clause. So if you're not going to play him regularly and he's making $3 million, at least make an effort to move him. Like, I know he has to agree to it, but maybe try and move him to another playoff team and even keep 50% and open up at least $1.5 million to use on another player that you're going to put in the roster regularly. It just doesn't, I don't know. The whole thing doesn't make sense to me.
But where would Skinner go this late in his career where he has an even better chance of winning a Stanley Cup? That's a viable trade option.
Well, I don't know if there's a better opportunity. I'm just saying like another playoff team that might be interested in him at 1.5 million instead of 3. Like, I don't know if maybe there isn't a trade out there, but I don't know why they're not even at least going to try that if they're not playing him. Like, I don't want to trade him, but play him.
Yeah.
I don't think he's gonna waive, even if they want him to, just because he signed here for a reason, right? He signed here because he knew he was gonna get a chance to play in the playoffs and to play with Connor and Leon. Like, yeah, of course, that's exciting. That'd be exciting to most guys. And yeah, Bob, you're right. I don't know where else he would waive to go, and that would want to acquire this player at this particular time. If I'm an outsider looking in, I'm like, okay, why is he a healthy scratch all the time? And why am I spending assets and $3 million of cap space to go get him? Right? Sure, they could retain a little bit, but you're still spending assets at the trade deadline, and that the Oilers could then turn around and use to upgrade their roster elsewhere. So if I'm a playoff contender or a Stanley Cup contender, am I going to try to help the Oilers out like that? Probably not.
Of course you are. What are you talking about?
What's that quote about the life preservers? No one's throwing life preservers in this league.
Yeah, throwing anvils.
Yeah. I'm going to put this comment up from Jeff here. Arvidsson isn't perfect and they move him up. I don't get it. So that if Skinner scores,
exactly.
He gets healthy scratched. Arvidsson hasn't done much. He gets promoted to the top line. So, what do you think's going on with Arvidsson? What are you guys' thoughts on him?
Man, I was excited for the pickup there. But yeah, I don't know if he's just not finding his chemistry. But promoted to top line. So 14 minutes with Connor McDavid on the first line, and he doesn't get a shot on net. In fact, if anything, I thought he was probably our worst Oiler yet last game. It's to me, I appreciate his work ethic. He does bust his tail, but he seemed legitimately lost where to set up in the offensive zone. The couple chances we did set up in the offensive zone in that Tampa game, like he didn't even know where to stand. He looked totally lost on where he should be, where Connor could find him. He was late in the picture all the time. He's not a slow guy. Why is he late in the picture? And how come he keeps falling? what's with this guy and his feet? Like he spends a lot of time on his knees and on his butt and getting spun around.
Too much time injured. He's forgotten how to skate.
I want him to succeed. I mean, he has a kind of tenacity, but geez, I mean, tenacity can only get you so far.
Yeah,
I think he's falling for the city, falling for his teammates.
Literally.
yeah.
I feel like he's been disappointing overall, and I don't think there's many people that are going to argue that. When he came back from that extended layoff where he was injured, and he was good for a little while, but the offense has just totally dried up again. And I thought most of the Oilers were it was too egocentric last game. It was carry the puck into the zone and then lose it, or dump and chase on your own and try to win a battle that you inevitably lose. Right? I think that observation came from Arvidsson a lot last game, playing on that top line. I don't feel like he's really developed any chemistry with anybody.
No.
So I want him to work in the top 6, but I feel like Jeff Skinner's a better option up there at this point.
Yeah. Ace saying in the chat, it's only 4 losses in a row. And yeah, I think we all have to keep the right frame of mind. Like, it's not the end of the world or anything like that. But like I said to start off, there's still 2 hard teams coming up here. It can turn from a 4 into a 6 real fast here if they don't get this turned around. Florida and Carolina
the rest
won't
of the
be
road
easy.
trip's easy.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's probably the most disturbing part right now. So when I was doing my power rankings for heavy hockey there at the 50 game mark, which I think is going to get posted here shortly, the Oilers were a top 10 team, but out of the top 10 teams, they had the worst record against the other top 10 teams. And what is it about, stellar competition that we're not stepping up our game to? Everybody in the playoffs is going to start playing like a top 10 team. So these are kind of the games, like these next 2 are huge ones where you're trying to establish yourself as being the favorite that we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And what was Skinner's record against the top 2 teams in each division recently? What was it, 2-10-1 or something around that line? Right. Yeah. So you're right. There's a clear evidence and a clear trend that suggests the Oilers are really struggling against elite level competition. And when the things were going well for us, the schedule was on the lighter side. Right. There weren't a lot of hard games throughout December and January. Like, there just weren't. And now we're being force fed a few of them coming out of a break where we're usually terrible, and some things are being exposed here. So, yeah. Bob, what's your level of concern after the 4-game losing streak?
At this point, I'm not what the Twitter world is, which is pressing the panic button and running around in circles with your hands up in the air and screaming that the sky is falling. My level of concern is slightly concerned, and the slight concern is more so because we have, again, 2 more big tests here right after this against top 10 teams, and with the habits we've developed here so far in these 3 games, that's a scary situation to come into. Big picture, though, as Patrick alluded to, it's a 4-game losing streak. We're still a top 10 team in the NHL. We're definitely still a playoff team. I'd rather do this losing streak now. I mean, if you have a 4-game losing streak at the playoffs, you're done, right? Mm-hmm. So let's work through these habits now. Let's clear these hurdles so that we're better prepared for this last 20-game stretch here.
Yeah, I'm not going to super panic yet either. I would like to see, though, I mean, odds are they won't win both of these games. Or I think we take winning one of them for sure right now. Yeah. But I want to start seeing the habits, like you were mentioning, Bob, like start turning here, start seeing the right positive things going. Like, even if they lose a game 3-2, we see that the effort's coming back there and they're not making as many turnovers. And like, you can see the tide start to turn. The thing that's been most disturbing for me over these 4 games is it doesn't seem to be getting any better. They're making the same mistakes game after game. We're not really seeing the changes that I'd like to see here. So I think even if we can't win both of these upcoming games or only win one of them. I just want to start seeing better habits coming back in here. And overall, I'm not going to panic too much because the Oilers are right in the mix here, as it's pointed out in the chat there. And every team is going to go through this. So the Oilers aren't the only team that's going to have a 4-game losing streak or anything like that. So they can afford to do this. Obviously, you don't want to see it go too long, but there's lots of reasons to stay positive and not completely panic here. This is a very good hockey team. They're in a funk. They're going to come out of it, and don't be surprised if they come out of it and then boom, go on a 6 or 7 game winning streak and then hopefully just right the ship here. So yeah, I'm not going to panic too much, but I would like to see those bad habits turning into good habits here over the next couple games.
Okay, so what are those habits, gents? For both of you here, what are these habits you want to see change? Like what can you see from our guys that are like, okay, we're getting back on track, and not something simple like say stop with the turnovers. I mean, obviously, but how do you stop those turnovers? Like, what do you guys think we need to see from these guys change to get us back? Like you say, even if we lose 3-2, or at least satisfied that our game is coming back on track.
Well, I think for me, it's better defensive coverage, not being so chaotic in your own zone, staying on your man, not leaving guys wide open, clearing pucks. Give Skinner a chance to see the puck, or whoever, Skinner, Pickard, whoever's coming in. When you're going up, make the simple pass, but try and get more speed through the neutral zone there when you're going in. And yeah, just the guys, as you were mentioning with with Arvidsson, like he didn't look like he knew where he was supposed to be. Like maybe get back to basics there. Maybe Knobloch's with the panic here is is trying some new plays and the guys aren't really following them. So I don't know, maybe just go back to basics, stuff like that.
My answer is going to be too much different, but defensive structure. That's what it boils down to for me. The Oilers play their best when they are connected and they follow their defensive structure. When Knobloch first came in, he tightened up the zone defense, prioritized slot coverage, and that worked a lot better for them than trying to play man defense and trying to win battles on the wall, like get their turnovers in the slot rather than on the wall. You can see that when it's not going well, they're either trying to play a man or it's just a sloppy version of a zone. So I think we're seeing that. Like what we saw against Washington, it was the Generals against the Globetrotters. Like that goal they got, I think it was the end of the second period where the two guys passed it across Nurse like 3 times, and then I think it was Pickard that game. He was left swimming. So when you see things like that happening, that's defensive structure. They just don't have it right now. But that's a big one for me.
Yeah, I think overall, just like you guys touched on too, just getting back to basics a little bit, just simplifying your game a little bit. Stop forcing stuff, or like you mentioned earlier too, Lotzi was in that Tampa game. There was a lot of egotism maybe played a bit there with some guys doing some single-handed rushes. Just pull back a little here and take in the big picture, simplify it, play a basic game, forecheck, back check, paycheck.
So I'm going to put this comment up from Ace 96, urgency. Right. So what do you guys think about that? I've got a thought on it, but I want to hear what you guys think. Like, does this team just need to up their give a shit level, or is it just simpler than that?
Well, I think Knobloch touched on it a little bit, which was actually almost a semi-scary statement after the last game. He says we are a fragile group right now. That's that fragility where, like, I actually thought Skinner played a good game against Tampa, but that wraparound goal took the wind out of our sails. Like, that was a shitty goal, and it's not just his fault. Bouchard was very soft in that one as well. It's two guys made a big mistake, but he loaded up so much on his left leg that he was pinned there for a while before he come across for a fairly weak wraparound and took the wind out of the guy's sails. So that kind of fragility, where a bad goal or like a bad cough up, say the Kapanen as cough up against Washington, you see the shoulders drop. At one point, you saw Arvidsson throw his hands up on that wraparound goal too, just exacerbated that. So that kind of thing where it's kind of like it's a punch in the gut, and it takes us a long time for us to regain our breath.
What do you think, Patrick?
Yeah. Well, yeah, urgency, speed, like they look so slow. I mean, we all know they've lost a few players that make up that speed over the summer, but this should be a faster team than what they're playing. And yeah, that urgency to get the puck in the zone, get the puck out of your own zone. And yeah, you were talking about that goal, Bob. Like that goal cannot go in. Like he came around the net fairly quickly, but it wasn't that quickly. Like people had time to stop that one. Like that goal cannot go in. So a key to getting this turned around, no more deflating goals that don't need to happen. Like there's going to be pucks that get deflected, things you can't control. That is a goal that was well within control of stopping, and defense and goaltender are to blame on that one. But yeah, goals like that have to stop.
Those ones are definitely deflating, and I think we've saw a little bit of that. Like we don't usually see that from this team, right? Like they usually do, okay, we let it go in, big whoop, drop the puck, let's go. But you can see that they did get visually like, there was a letdown. You could see the arrow get out of their lungs a little bit in those last few games. So I've kind of got conflicting thoughts on this one, because if you want to go back even to the Dave Tippett era, right? This team is streaky as can be in both ways, good and bad, right? Like there were multiple streaks that got Dave Tippett fired. Like what was it, 2 and 12 and something, right before Tippett got fired. Jay Woodcroft's last season, 2-9-1 before they made the decision, 3-9-1 before they actually pulled the trigger, right? And even this season, we started the season out losing 3 in a row, and now this, right? So like when it rains, it pours in Edmonton. So it's a trend I wish would stop, because the sky's always falling when this happens, and that sucks. But so part of it, yeah, urgency, dig in a little bit, right? It's like, okay, I think we're losing control here. Let's settle in and get this. But part of me is like, this is an old team. It's a veteran team. They've got calm, they've got composure, and they've got confidence. They know they can dig themselves out of this. They've done it before. They've been through everything you can go through in this league, essentially. So they're comfortable. And I don't view that as a bad thing necessarily. This quiet confidence, like, yeah, okay, we'll ride this storm out, and we're gonna figure this out because we're good enough. We have that belief, and there's a lot of evidence that says we can do this. It's just, how do they do it, right? How do they do it? It comes down to work. You just got to work your way through it. Put the hard hat on, as they always say, right? Just commit to the details, like commit to the structure, and go to work in the ozone, get some cycle time, get some extended ozone time. I think that's where what it's gonna come down to. It's like, is that urgency though? I don't know, but it's something. It's mental, is what it is. Because And another point is that I know Knobloch said earlier in the year that it's almost better to keep the old guys skating and moving, because once they stop, it's harder to get them to start going again, right? I think that might be a reason why they're always so bad coming out of breaks, is because they're an older team. It takes a lot extra time to get the engine running, and a little bit more force to get the big truck moving.
Having said that, though, are you guys surprised that Corey Perry's played every game? I know he plays under 10 minutes a game, so it's not like he's still playing top 6 minutes or nothing. But every game, Corey Perry.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised at that.
Yeah. I'm not overly surprised, just because he's been one of their most consistent players all year long. Like, I don't think Corey Perry's ever really had a period where he struggled or you weren't noticing him. Like, he's got over 10 goals this year. He's been a reliable player for them, so I think that's why he's managed to stay in, because he's been that consistent guy, I think, all season long for the large majority of it anyway.
And that's all fine and dandy, but I'm also thinking like of his age. Like,
I
start doing some load management so he's good for the playoffs. Where I was really surprised is that he's played, well, obviously all the games, so he's played all the back-to-backs, right? So like he hasn't had a night off at all and something like that. And we have guys on the bench, but again, I guess there's a personal vendetta perhaps against Skinner. But you got Brown and Janmark and these guys you can alternate in. Perry doesn't even take a roll up in that rotation. And not that he deserves it. I'm like you said, Patrick. He's played well. He's been a consistent for us for the most part. But just for load management purposes, I wonder if that's something we'll see here in this next 20 games, depending on how urgent our games, how important our games are down the stretch.
And I don't know that we will, to be honest. Right, like at the start of the year, I would have thought Perry was a prime choice to come in and out of the lineup because he's 39 years old. But he scores. He's got more goals than Arvidsson and Skinner right now. Right, like two guys that were big prized free agent signings this summer, and Corey Perry sitting there on the fourth line, has got more goals than both of them. And who's up there playing with Connor and Leon a lot of the games, or a lot of the times when they load it up like that? Corey Perry, right? They go through their wingers like when in that situation, but Corey Perry's in that rotation. So they view him as a guy that can go up and down the lineup. He plays second unit power play for you. Zach Hyman's out, who's on the power play in the front of the net. It's Corey Perry.
Yeah.
So I think they view him as more than just a fourth line guy who's here to give his Stanley Cup experience. Like, he's a contributor.
Yeah. No, he is for sure. I mean, they may do that load management, like you mentioned, Bob, maybe in the second half when they've brought in a couple more guys at the trade deadline, and maybe you're sitting two guys sit instead of one guy out of the lineup every night. So that might be where Corey Perry takes some games off. But like I said, been one of the most consistent players. So based on merit, he deserves to be in. But yeah, they might just down the stretch here rest him a bit before the Stanley Cup playoffs get going.
Absolutely. So I'll do a little bit of a reset here. This is Oilers Live on YouTube and Edmonton Sports Talk on TuneIn and iHeartRadio. You've got Lotzi and Bob the goalie and the Oiler fanatic Patrick Phillips with us. And we're talking some Oilers hockey, talking the losing streak. But let's get to the news of the day. Not that it was a big signing or a big move, but a familiar face returns to Edmonton. Why don't you give us the details there, Patrick?
Well, the prodigal son returns. Travis Dermott reclaimed off waivers from the Minnesota Wild. I honestly thought he was going to clear waivers the first time, but it was just a perfect opportunity, I guess, there for him with Minnesota with the injury problems there. So they claimed him, and now he's freed up, and the Bakersfield Condors will certainly need some help on left shot D down there. So he's already been assigned to Bakersfield, so he's on his way down. But when the time comes, the Edmonton Oilers have some more depth on left shot D as well. So still don't know if I want Travis Dermott to be the first call up if something happens on our left side. But if we got a couple injuries, maybe Travis Dermott is there. But for right now, Bakersfield can definitely use him.
Yeah, we're saying
all that this is. I think it's all that this is at this point with Travis Dermott. Yeah. Like, they waived him for a reason. They were going to send him down for a reason. He got some NHL games, but he wasn't exactly lighting it up. And I mean, Cam Dineen's the only lefty D down there in Bakersfield right now. Right? He's the only other one in the organization aside from the guys we have on the roster right now. So yeah, they absolutely needed to add another lefty. If they were going to add any D, it had to be a lefty. But there's a chance that it could be the insurance policy that Stan Bowman may have been talking about when he interviewed with Pierre LeBrun recently. I believe it was back in January. But he was saying that if the Oilers are going to add a D, it might be another left shot D, just as insurance in case one of Ekholm, Nurse, or Kulak ends up going down and they have no other lefties. Right? You got Stetcher, you got Emerson, you got Klingberg, and you got Josh Brown if you really want to go that route. Phil Kemp, right? They're all righties.
Yeah, and then names I've heard as possible down the line, I think a majority of them were righties too, except there was one, I think Ristolainen was mentioned at one point. I think he's a lefty shot, but you hear guys of Mario Ferraro, I know was mentioned. I think he's a righty. I'm forgetting the other guy. I think there was two that I've heard that were right shots as well. So it's interesting that those were still kind of chatted about when we did need some lefties yet, especially for Bakersfield.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll get into some trade needs a little bit later on in the show, but Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be pumped if Dermott's that insurance option on the left side, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was kind of the thought process.
I mean, he helps, but he better not be the solution.
Yeah, I feel like they could
aim
probably
higher,
still
please.
benefit. Yeah, they could aim higher. They could benefit from targeting someone else. It's
Yeah.
like I don't see Dermott coming up unless it's a break glass in case of emergency kind of situation.
Yeah.
And so someone brought it up in the chat earlier, but Evander Kane. I think there's a lot of chatter out there about what's going on with him right now. Some people are saying he might be back before the deadline. Some people are saying he's still going to be out for the rest of the season. We know he's skating and he's going at about 60% clip, not nearly 100%. He's not practicing with the team, just skating on his own at this point. So, what do you guys think? Is Kane going to return before the deadline, or do you think he's going to be out for the rest of the season?
I don't think I'm not confident he'll be back before the deadline, but I'm also not confident he'll be back or not out for the rest of the season. Geez, that's a tricky one. A healthy Evander Kane, a motivated healthy Evander Kane is something to behold. But you're also looking now at a guy who, when he does come back, if he does come back, he's gonna have some rust to shake off. He's his timing, his speed, even his aggression level. He's been out of that element for a while. As his game management, I guess, another thing that he brings to the table. Oof, that's going to be a tricky one for the Oilers to handle. That's for sure. I don't envy those decision making. You'll want to get us some playing time. I think it's unfair just to throw him into a playoff game. Like, you need to get him some time, I think, before playoffs, if that is something we want to pursue, is getting him on the playoff roster.
I don't think he's coming back before the end of the regular season. I think the Edmonton Oilers know that already, and they're kind of just playing it. I don't know can't remember what the term is. They know what they're being sneaky about it. They know what's going on there, but they're kind of just keeping it quiet for now. To your point, Bob, it would be nice to get Evander Kane some games in, but I'd rather have the cap space. And if Evander Kane needs time to break back in, put him in on the fourth line when you're coming in, break him in really slow. You don't need to throw him into the top 9 right away, right? If he does come back in the playoffs, just let him slowly work his way back up. He can do a conditioning stint in Bakersfield, and yeah, just break him back in that way. But I don't think we see him before the playoffs.
And I've been saying it from the very beginning, as soon as all this was going down in the summertime, that I don't think Evander Kane is playing this season. I just don't think he's going to play in the regular season, and we'll see about the playoffs. We'll see about that. But he's still not even practicing with the team yet, right? And he's going to come back in the next 20 games, maybe. Like, the original timeline was he had the surgery on September 19th. The original timeline from that date was a minimum of 5 to 6 months, right? That would have put it from February 19th to March 19th. Then he had the knee surgery that was supposed to delay his recovery by a week or 2. So add that week or 2 range on there, it suddenly becomes February 26th. Oh, that's today. Look at that. Today until April 3rd, right? The season ends April 17th. And those dates are a minimum.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think they have every possibility in the world of just keeping him out. I think they have enough evidence for the doctors if they get questioned on it. Like, I just don't see any point in bringing him back before the end of the regular season. It would being able to utilize that LTIR space would help the team in so many ways. Just roster flexibility and being able to add anything. So I would be very surprised if he was to come back at any point during the regular season, let alone before the deadline. Like, I think we can put that to rest. Like, if he's not even practicing with the team by now, but 10 days out from the deadline, he ain't coming back before the deadline. Like, let's settle down a little bit on that. Yeah, so I want to get you guys' thoughts on the goaltending, because a fantastic writer at the Heavy Hockey Network put out this really great article earlier in the week on Stuart Skinner versus John Gibson and Karel Vejmelka. Got the QR code up in the corner of the screen if you want to check it out at heavyhockey.com. But basically, I went through and I looked at Skinner's numbers versus Gibson and Vejmelka's numbers, not just this season, because I think anyone that's been watching and kind of following the numbers at all knows that Skinner's numbers are worse than those two this season. But I went back throughout Skinner's last 2 years as well. And Skinner's numbers were actually better than both those guys over the last 2 seasons before this one. All right, so I'm like, okay, what are we getting, right? Are we really getting an upgrade? Are we so focused on the here and now that we choose to ignore the evidence of the past 2 seasons as well, right? What are your guys' thoughts? What are your thoughts on Skinner versus Gibson and Vejmelka? Would you pursue either one of those goalies? Is there another goalie out there you'd rather have, or are you happy to stay the course? I'll start with our resident goalie expert, Bob.
Oh man, I could do a whole show on this one. Are you kidding me? First off, great article, Lottie. I really enjoyed reading it. And anybody, and there are a shit ton of them on Twitter. And yeah, I do still call it Twitter. I mean, a rose by any other name smells the same, but so does a pile of shit. So regardless, it's the same name. And yeah, if anybody and the goaltending question has been up the air. It's the number one topic for all Oilers fans and fans. That just we need upgrading goaltending. Blah 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 blah. Your article answers a lot of questions. It also asks some more questions. Gives a lot of clarity to it. Man, people have got to read this. I think it's one of my favorite articles written so far, Lotzie. So our goaltending. I understand the sentiment. We are in a win now era. And so we want the best that we can have now to win. Gibson and Vejmelka are playing better than Skinner is playing now, 100%. So I understand that argument. But you look at a guy like Skinner, who was he 26, 27? He's in his prime window here, and he's already made it to Game 7 Stanley Cup Finals. He was in the playoffs the year before that too. He has playoff experience more than Gibson. Vejmelka's never even seen the playoffs yet, and now we're going to throw him into this environment in a hockey mad place like Edmonton, and he's never even experienced that atmosphere like Utah. Be it as it may, he also spent his last few years in Arizona where there's like 30 people in the crowd. So he has nothing to compare it to. He'd be going in raw. Playoff is a whole different animal than regular season. As good as your regular season is, playoffs, you start from zero. Gibson, older goalie, very injury prone. I tweeted out today that he's been on the injured list 9 times since the beginning of 2024, and he's on the injured list now. And I posted that there was people saying I'd rather have an injured goalie than the goalies we have now. What good is an injured goalie from the press box? What kind of value is he bringing to the team from the press box? We need something that helps us on the ice now. Stuart knows what it takes to get there. I have faith that he can still find that game. Lots of guys find their second season on the home stretch or during the playoffs. It's in him. I too am concerned with the way he's playing now. It's probably one of his most struggling seasons compared to his last 2 for sure. But again, when the second season starts, it's brand new. He knows what it takes. It's in him to do it. Any goalie, especially a guy like Skinner who has that experience, can get hot at the right time. I'm not worried overall about our goaltending right now. Are you always looking for an upgrade? You're looking for an upgrade at every position when you're a GM. You're constantly looking to upgrade your team. The only 2 positions we do not need an upgrade in are first and second line center. Any other position could use an upgrade if they're right. You're not saying that we wouldn't trade Kucherov for Hyman. Hey, you would probably. McKinnon for Nuge, like you would. Makar for Bouchard, you would. There's always players that are better than them in these positions, except for first and second line center. So as a goalie, yeah, you're looking to see if you can upgrade that position. You're doing that whether you're losing, you're doing that whether you're winning. You're seeing what's out there. That's not saying it's a necessity. It's just something you do as a manager. We don't need it. If something was there that's reasonable, yeah. If there's an option that's reasonable, yeah, why not take a shot at it? Especially in a win now method. But we don't need it. There's other needs that need to be addressed before our goaltending does.
I don't want to give up on Stuart Skinner. I know he's had a subpar season compared to what he delivered before, and I think it would be a huge mistake to move him out now. So if the Oilers did want to pick up a goaltender, I'd want to pick up somebody that was kind of an in-between between Skinner and Pickard, someone that can spell him off. When we were on when Dash and I were on the ST Hangout on Tuesday, we were talking about maybe a guy like Jonathan Quick or something like that. Not someone that takes over the starter's job, but if you need someone to spell Skinner for 2 or 3 games, who's got some cup experience, who can talk with Skinner in the room too about what it takes to get there. And I mean, Skinner made it to Game 7 last year, but if he needs some help, like I think a lot of Skinner's problem, and I think with a lot of goalies, it's a mental thing too. It gets in your head. It's like, oh, I've given up this bad one, and then I don't want to give up the next one. But obviously, a huge thing is how the defense is playing in front of our goaltender. If we can get another top 4 defenseman, even better. I mean, our goalies have always looked fine when the defense is good in front of them. It's when our defense completely breaks down. The goalies are getting grade A chances against them. They don't know where the shots are coming from. It's all a scrambled, chaotic mess in front of them. So, bottom line, I don't want to get rid of Stuart Skinner. I think here's our goaltender of the future. If they did get a goaltender, and it really doesn't sound like they're going to, unless they're really playing that coy, I think it's going to be Skinner and Pickard when everything's said and done on March 7th. But yeah, somebody in between is the only change that I would make.
You guys were talking about Jonathan Quick on the Hangout, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know if Quick is the guy because I don't know that the Rangers are going to be selling, but
Yeah,
I had a
if you
similar idea I had an idea in the article just to grab somebody that can give you 4 or 5 starts down the stretch just so you can rest Stuart Skinner and Calvin Pickard, right? Skinner's played the 3rd most games in the league over the last 2 seasons. He had 59 games last year, and then he played 25 or he played a bunch in the playoffs as well, right? So like, he's played a lot of hockey, and let's not forget he played 50 games in his rookie season in 22-23. That was a lot. We were questioning his endurance then, and I figured he'd be okay because he is young, right? Like he's in his mid-20s. He's a kid, but I think we're starting to see the effects of fatigue on him. Because, like I say, it's a lot of hockey for anybody to play, let alone a rookie or a younger guy. And maybe he got too much hockey too soon when his body wasn't quite ready for it. I don't know. Like Bob, maybe you can speak to that a little bit better than I can because you have professional goaltending experience and I don't. So I can't even talk to the true strain on the body. But I think fatigue has a lot to do with what we're seeing out of Skinner.
I'll tell you where you feel the fatigue. You feel the fatigue when you're losing, or when you let in that bad goal sort of thing. You know, that's where you feel the fatigue. When you're winning or you're in that zone, you don't feel it. You feel it after the game. You do everything you can to start get your body recovering. But when you're in that zone, you could play 100 games. You're just feeling it. And when you're winning, you can play 100 games. But when you're losing and you're always battling from behind, and you have that extra pressure now because your team is faltering, you have to make that big save. Like I guarantee you that wraparound goal affected Stuart Skinner more than any of his teammates. He knows more than anybody he should have had that one. And your legs instantly get heavier because you feel like you've let your team down, and all of a sudden you feel like your pads are the heaviest things on the planet. You got that extra load to carry to make sure that next one doesn't go in because your teammates rely on you for it. Even though that's something that draws you to that position because you like that pressure, when you're in that funk and you're losing and you've played so much hockey, like you said, that's when you feel the fatigue. So I'm with you, and that's one of the parts I liked about your article where you mentioned bringing the 3rd goalie to spell the boys off for a bit. I think depending on the importance of the games, we'll start seeing Pickard a little bit more as well. But I have said beginning of the season that I would love to see Rodriguez called up for a 3 or 4 game stint, kind of what we did with Skinner. before he became a regular. We brought him up a little bit. Again, that'll depend on the importance of the games, but there is some validity behind the fatigue point, especially if you're losing.
And so what do you think about Rodriguez, a potential option? From what I've been hearing, the goaltending hasn't exactly been great down in Bakersfield this year. So like I don't know that his development is continuing in that straight upward trajectory we've been seeing for the last couple.
Yeah, which kind of echoes the Oilers goaltending in general, right? Because even our NHL goaltending it has stopped with this upward trajectory as it was happening. It's kind of filtered down to the minors. I think Rodriguez has put up a pretty good resume leading into this season that he deserves even just a shot, get some NHL action, get some NHL shooters on him, and that also could be something that rejuvenates him and gets him motivated and realizes the next step he has to take and brings that game down to Bakersfield, and hopefully that solidifies his game for him. Another important thing about Skinner I wanted to quickly touch on is I had somebody ask me on Twitter if I was confident that Skinner could lead us back to a Stanley Cup. And I said, we don't need Skinner to lead us. We need Skinner to support us to the Stanley Cup. We just need him to get hot at the right time. A goalie leading the team is actually pretty rare. I mean, for the Oilers, like Rolson led us in 06 to the finals. Ranford led us to a Stanley Cup in 90. But that's twice in the Oilers' history where the goalie is the reason why we got as far as we did. We don't need him to lead, just to support and be part of the reason why we're winning.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
No, go ahead, Patrick. I'm looking something up.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna say I wouldn't mind seeing Rodrigue come up at least for a couple games, just kind of see how he looks. Like I don't want him to come up as the solution or anything like that, but like kind of see where he's at, like how he does against NHL competition. Like, does he get completely shelled, or does he look like he's holding his own? Or because I mean, you're getting to the point where like he's going to be another restricted free agent again this year, but you want like he's going to keep signing 1-year deals, or what's going on with this guy, right? And we got Calvin Pickard for another year, so there isn't a huge rush to get him up here, but he's going to need to be passing through waivers and stuff. So I don't think it would hurt for the Oilers to find out what they got here, give them a game or two, and
Delia is kind of an option a little bit just because he does have NHL experience. But with you, Patrick, I'd rather see Rodrigue get the call up instead of Delia.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want Delia up here. I think he's fine where he is.
Yeah, Delia didn't even cross my mind.
No,
honestly. So just to your point about the goalie not needing to lead the charge in the playoffs, I think last year's a great example. Stuart Skinner had a .901 save percentage and a .245 goals against average in the playoffs last season. Those aren't exactly world-beating numbers, right? Like that, this is below average goaltending from just those two perspectives. I mean, goals against was really good, but save percentage was low. So it wasn't like the goalie was standing on his head. That goals against average was the result of fantastic team defense. So does that mean that I think they can't win with Stuart Skinner? No. They can't. They absolutely can, right? He was an above average goaltender for his first 2 seasons, and this year he's kind of average to below average in a lot of numbers. We just need him to recover something that's above average and have the team play better defense in front of him, and this team can do a lot of great things. But so I'm in favor of keeping the status quo or potentially adding a third guy that you don't care about getting rid of later just to spell him off for a few games. But the one thing I'll say is that if you look at the performance age curve for goaltenders, the peak is usually starting around 26, extends through age 28, little decline at age 29, and then after that, it's a downward spiral from there. It's like you go at Gibson with 31 years old. He's having an outlier season in what should be the decline stage of his career after, and this outlier season's coming after 2 terrible ones. So that's not a guy that I want to buy, especially if I'm buying high on him and spending high quality assets to do so. Like I don't support that at all. Vejmelka is a little more intriguing. He's 28 years old though. It's like you got a little more of a leash on him, but Skinner's 26. You've probably got the longest timeline with him. But I will say that if we're gonna hope that he's gonna become this elite number one goaltender, like Vasilevsky, Halibut, Shesterkin, like if we're expecting that to come out of Skinner now, I think the hopes are gone. Like I think we have what we have in Skinner. It's more about how long he's gonna keep this up, and it's about future organization planning at this point for me. It's yeah, we're in a win now mode. I get it, but you got McDavid for one more plus hopefully 8 more. You got Leon for 8 more for sure. It's like you want to keep the team competitive for as long as you possibly can. So even if you have Skinner re-sign another short contract at the end of this one, then you're gonna get average to above average goaltending for another 2-3 years at least, and then that's when it really needs to start getting worried. But we need to start at least thinking about the conversation if it hasn't happened yet.
Well, both Skinner and Vejmelka have, are still kind of in early stages of their career, and Skinner has been the overall better goalie throughout his career so far. Vejmelka is having a great season for sure, but this is his first season where his goals against average is under 3. This is his first season where his save percentage is above 900. It's his first season where his quality start percentage is above 50%. It's also his first season where his goals saved above average is not a negative. So basically, when people are looking at Vejmelka, they're just looking at this season, not his overall resume as a goalie. And of course, my other pet peeve here is your average Oiler fan. How many Oiler games do you think your average Oiler fan watches? 60, 50? Your average Oiler fan.
Probably
Something like that.
Range. Yeah.
So, and then how many other teams do you think they watch that aren't playing the Oilers? Like if they're watching the Oiler games, they're probably seeing other teams maybe once, twice, 3 times. How many other games are you watching? How many Utah games do you think the average Oiler fan watches? Like,
how many times do we play them? 3?
Yeah, exactly. Right. So all of a sudden we have all these experts that know about these other teams. You saw it with Bennington. Bennington's not having the greatest season. And then he's on 4 Nations Cup. The first couple of games, everybody's shitting on Bennington because he's struggling. Why is he on Team Canada? We need to put somebody else in there. And then lo and behold, he becomes a hero in the final. Because this is all we've seen of Bennington, is besides the couple times that we see him play the Oilers, if he plays the game against the Oilers. So the grass is always greener. We see this goalie play twice a year. Like, he plays good. We should get him. Look at his numbers. We see Skinner for 50 to 60 games a year, so we see his flaws, we see his great stuff, but as humans, the negative appeals to us more, so we'll focus on that more than on the positives. So if that's in the shitty goal, it's that goal is the reason why Skinner sucks, not the fact that he just made 16 or 9 grade A saves in that second period after that wraparound. So we look at it with uneducated eyes, where Vejmelka's our guy, and yet if you watch every Utah game, just like any goal in the NHL, he lets in shitty goals. It comes with the position.
That's absolutely right. Like, I was watching the Pittsburgh-Washington game where Washington blew Pittsburgh out of the building, but one of the goals that they got was Sidney Crosby. It was a weak backhand that kind of snuck through the body of Logan Thompson. Right, that guy's having an unbelievable season, but that goal that Crosby got on him, it was a stinker. Right, it's like every goalie is going to let in bad goals once in a while. And yeah, Stu's maybe doing it a little more consistently than some other goalies this year. And it's let's call a spade a spade. His numbers are down, right? But we know there's more in Skinner, and this team can win with the goaltending that Skinner is capable of providing. Ready to say more, Patrick?
Sorry, I keep cutting about. That's goaltending. I get all hot and headed. Go ahead, Patrick.
I was going to say, I think the Oilers just need goaltending where the goalie can keep it to 3 goals or less. It's the games where they're giving up more than 3 is usually where we lose. The Oilers have enough offensive firepower that if they only have to score more than 3 goals, more often than not, they can do that. And we're seeing where they're getting blown out here, and like they're losing 6-3, 7-3. Like there's like they're getting 3 goals in these losses still, so they're still finding ways to score. So I don't know. Like, the Oilers don't need elite level goaltending. They just need someone who can stop the odd one more than they should. And right now Skinner's just not stopping that odd one that he should. And when he was, we were doing really successful. When the defense was playing better in front of them, they were doing really successful. So I think probably if the Oilers can have their way here, depending on how things works with Evander Kane, like a top 4D, I think would do a lot better than getting another goaltender. Because I think Skinner and Pickard, especially if Skinner gets his confidence going here, I think he can definitely be the guy with Pickard, and maybe if we get a third guy just to spell them off a little bit or try out Rodrigue for a little bit. But I'd go for a top 4D right now and just try and see if we can get that going that way, because I don't want to give up on Stuart Skinner, and doesn't sound like they're going to, but it's hard to add Skinner and another goaltender that is going to be a 1B with the price range and everything like that. That's why I was like suggesting someone like Jonathan Quick, because he's only making like 1 million something, right? So that's a lot easier to fit in than these guys that are, I mean, even if you hold half of John Gibson, it's still 3.2 or whatever, and that's still for another 2 years beyond this, right? So you're talking about John Gibson declining. Well, great, we've got him for his 2 declining years after this one as well. So definitely don't want to go in that direction. But yeah, I'd go for a top 4D.
Yeah. I think that's a good segue into my next question for you guys, which is, does this losing streak change the Oilers' trade deadline plans at all? Right, we're 9, or I guess 8 days. My math is terrible. We're a week and 2 days away from the trade deadline here, and this losing streak is coming at a perhaps convenient time because it's exposing some flaws and maybe putting a little urgency in the GM talking about urgency. So, what do you guys think? Does the losing streak make Bowman a little more antsy?
You go first, Bob, if you want.
Oh my goodness. I don't think the necessary it exposes flaws that we think already knew were there. I don't think it's anything new we're seeing. We're just seeing more of it, if anything. I think we're just times we're a little too soft. There's times where we don't simplify things. We try to do too much at times. Defensively, we break down. Just as a team, we're not tracking the puck well. Some bad decision making. These are all coachable things for the most part. And when you're in a funk, it just gets amplified, and you get caught up in that rhythm. And it's like you said before, Losky, when it rains, it pours at times, right? So we just need to start finding that areas, small things at first, where we can open up the umbrella and stop the rain. I don't think there's any urgency for a big trade. I don't think we need a blockbuster trade. If anything, we just need some support and some tweaking. Yeah, that's where I stand on it. I don't think anything really new came of it. It's just stuff that we need to focus on and address that we already knew were there, and maybe now it's just that much more evident.
Yeah, I agree, Bob. It is just, I think, further exposing things that they already knew were there, and you can't, just the same if they were going in on a 6-game winning streak or whatever, you can't be focusing too much on that and thinking they got a perfect team, because they're going to have times where they struggle after that, and you can't focus too much on a 4-game losing streak, or we hope it doesn't go any longer than 4, but it could go longer than 4 going into the trade deadline. You can't go too much either direction. I'd rather they get like a couple smaller pieces for a couple different parts of the lineup rather than load up on one big piece, because I think if you can affect more than one part of the lineup, it's going to benefit them much more in the long run there. And Bradley was mentioning there that John Klingberg signing didn't make sense, or it hasn't worked out so far. I mean, John Klingberg's not exactly being put in a strong situation to succeed right now with how poorly the rest of the team is playing. Like Darnell Nurse was on fire earlier in the year, and he doesn't look the same right now. And if Darnell Nurse was playing the way Darnell Nurse was playing earlier in the year, I think John Klingberg would look a lot better right now. Not to take all the blame off of John Klingberg. He could certainly play better as well, but he is coming in having not played much over the last year and a half or whatever it was. So, but at the same time, a guy like Matt Savoy has come in and looked really good. So, I mean, you got to do what you can by yourself, but John Klingberg could look better if the team was playing better around him as well.
I think that's totally fair. I haven't got a good read on Klingberg yet. Like I don't think we've had enough of a true sample size yet. There was one giveaway against Washington that came at or no, it was Philadelphia. Sorry, it was one of those two games on the weekend. It was after Bouchard made a couple and they had scored a goal or two really quick, and then Klingberg gave one away. Right, like that's been the most obvious like puck mistake I've seen. When in his first few games, I thought there was some defensive coverage issues, but I noticed them less and less as time has gone on. What I love about Klingberg is his ability to move in the offensive zone, right? Like a lot of deal just stand at the blue line, and that's their contribution to the offense. Puck comes to them, they either put it deep or go D to D, right? That's kind of your typical D man. But no, Klingberg will move around. Like look at the goal he scored against Philly. Right, he went to the net. So like that's why Klingberg's an exciting player to me, but he does need to be able to keep the puck out of the net at his own end. And one of the things we were told to be worried about with Klingberg is just his gapping at the blue line. Like he gives a lot of space just because he's not the most nimble and not the best at puck retrievals. Doesn't want to get beat wide, and I think we've seen that he's not exactly aggressive at the blue line. So those are some little things. But to my original question, does the losing streak make or put some panic in the GM here? I don't think so. I would hope that our mature GM that's won 3 Stanley Cups and would expect our veteran group to come out of this funk, right? I don't think a 4-game streak is going to really change their trade deadline plans all that much. And depending on the Kane situation too, they may be handcuffed. They may only be able to add one guy, right? If they've got such little cap space. But if Kane's going to be out and they have some face to work with, then I think they've got scenarios planned out for that as well. I think I'm hoping that our team and our organization is beyond panic moves. And other organizations might do that in a win now scenario. Oh my goodness, we have to win a championship this year. Things are going wrong, and let's blow it up. Let's make the big blockbuster trade. But I don't see any panic moves coming. That's just me.
Well, I sure hope not.
I sure hope not as well. One more quick question for you guys. We've got about 12 minutes left here. We're going to do one quick question, and then we'll talk about the showdown a little bit and go around the horn. Evan Bouchard has been taking a lot of heat, and hasn't done much to save grace over the past few games. The wraparound goal wasn't all on Stu. Evan could have sealed that post and gotten there a lot quicker had he just moved his feet. And I've defended him a lot. He makes it real hard sometimes, though. So my question to you guys is, what do you do? And I'm not proposing trade stuff here because I don't think any of us are in favor of trading the kid. How do you get the kid to stop turning the puck over so much? Patrick, why don't you go first this time?
Well, they already play him with the best defensemen. So listen to Ekholm. I don't know. Maybe put him with. Oh, jeez. Like he's got Paul Coffey there coaching him. He's playing with Matthias Ekholm, our best defenseman, and he looked great last year. I mean, I guess the one benefit to all this, maybe it brings his price tag down for the next contract.
Yes, silver lining.
But yeah, I don't know what you do with Bush. I mean, like they seem to have like the answers there, and Paul Coffey, Matthias Ekholm, and it's seemed to work wonders before this season. But yeah, pretty much right from the get-go, he's looked off, and I don't know. Maybe it is because it's a contract year for him. Maybe it's getting in his head, and it really shouldn't, but I don't know what you do because, like I said, those would be my suggested answers: playing with Ekholm, or if he had like been moved away from Ekholm, but he's been pretty steadily playing with him. So yeah, I honestly don't have a good answer for that one. I don't know what's off with him.
Well, you're Chris Knobloch there, Bob. What do you do?
So this is ever since Bouchard's been like an established defenseman, I'm with you too, Lottie, there, where I've gone on my way to defend this guy a lot of times. Like you said, you couldn't have put it better. It is tough sometimes when he doesn't do you any favors. He just has so much upside, so much potential, and things we've seen him do before. It's we see the importance in him. We see how vital he is actually to the team, and when he's on, what he brings to the table. This 4-game stretch that he's in is probably the worst hockey I've seen him play since he was an established defenseman. When he puts up this 4-game stretch he's put together, it's been painful to watch. To the point where I was one of those guys now who's like, it probably wouldn't hurt for Bouchard to watch one game from the press box. I know you're taking away 25 minutes off somebody, but just to have the rest of D-Corps play as a committee, and for Bouchard to see how how things look from up top, kind of thing. I'm sure he's aware of his weaknesses and the struggles more than anybody, and so just be able to watch it all from a distance, kind of regroup, reset, and hopefully maybe a bit of a wake up call. I actually like the move that Novak did when he didn't have Bouchard out there for that dying minutes of a game where we needed a goal, when they pulled the goalie and Bouch wasn't out there. I thought that was a decent message. I think we're also underestimating the fact Ekholm's illness. I know you feed a lot off your partner. Is Ekholm playing bad because Bouchard's playing bad, or is Bouchard playing shitty because Ekholm was struggling? Right. So it's a lot of give and take. Ekholm has been fighting that bad illness there for a while. He still sounds rough. He's still struggling out there, finding his lungs. He's making some mistakes we haven't seen Ekholm make in forever, and maybe either Bouchard's feeling the pressure to start carrying that D pairing till Ekholm finds his footing a bit better, and he's forcing stuff that isn't there, or he just doesn't have that backup in Ekholm right now as consistent as he had before, and it's messing with him. I don't know. It's a catch-22, but for Bouchard to watch one game, I'm for.
You can always bring up Travis Dermott for a couple, right?
Yeah, it's not as if the Oilers don't have replacement options that could spell Bouchard for a game, right? It would allow you to try a couple different things. Maybe try Klingberg with Ekholm for a game and see how it goes, right? You got guys that can play the power play for a game if they had to. Darnell Nurse has done it before. Klingberg has done it in his career before. Ekholm plays on the second unit as it is. So it wouldn't be the end of the world to have him sit a game. I agree, but like ice time's the only real punishment. Like it's the only real incentive that the coach has to work with. He can't dock their pay. He can't take them to the back and whip them. Right. All he can do is limit their ice time a little bit. So I don't know if it's a game that needs to happen. Maybe it's more than just one shift in a period. Like we saw Knobloch bench Draisaitl in a game against Philadelphia this year. He's been the best player in the league ever since. Right. So maybe it's whether it's a game or a period or a few shifts. Next time it happens, something's got to happen with Bouchard to give him some accountability. I think that's all you can really do. And I lied to you guys. We're going to do one more quick one here. We had this question from Simon, directed specifically at Patrick, but I'll field it to both of you guys. Not necessarily to the trade deadline, and I'll let you field that one if you want to, but we'll do the predictions for the rest of the road trip. Then we'll wrap it up here. So how are they going to do in Florida? How are they going to do in Carolina? And you can comment on the rest of the trade deadline next week if you want to. Go ahead.
Am I going first?
Yeah, you're up, Patrick.
Okay. All right. I think they go 1-1. I think they take one of the next couple games. I'll say they beat Carolina, so lose again to Florida, but I say they start to look better against Florida, and then they beat Carolina. I hope they win both, but my guess is 1-1, that it takes more than one game to kind of get them out of this funk here. And what do I think they do at the trade deadline? I think they end up getting a bottom 6 forward and probably a number 4, number 5 defenseman, but a lot of it's going to depend on what happens with Evander Kane. So if Evander Kane's out, maybe a top 4 guy, more of a top 4 guy, but if they have to deal with Evander Kane coming back, probably if they can get a cheap bottom six guy and a cheap defenseman, maybe add two, but depending on the price, it might have to be settled for one or the other if Evander Kane is coming back.
And Bob, what have you got?
Well, I'm an eternal optimist when it comes to my Oilers. In my mind, we always go 82-0 and always surprised when we lose that first one. So I'm going with we're winning both games. I think the first one against Florida is going to be, one where we kind of find our legs, get back on track. Might be an OT, might be a shootout one, just something that gets us, edge of a win. And I think Carolina has a potential to be an offensive explosion for us, where we start peppering, like, say, 5-6 goals here just to say we're back. It's a statement game. And, we had this rut. Florida turned us around, and now we're, rockets a-blazing kind of thing. That's probably more hope than a prediction, but that's what I'm predicting. When it comes to the trade deadline, 100% agree with you, Patrick. I think you basically said it word for word. I think we're probably looking at a bottom six forward. If anything, a guy who emphasizes a bit more on some grit and toughness kind of element to the game. And a supportive D-man. Bottom four D-man there as well. That maybe has a bit of an edge to himself, a little bit too. Maybe some size back there, but just more support roles than anything else.
And for myself, I'm gonna say that, just to be different here. I talked earlier about how I was disappointed with the response from the Tampa game. Well, we're going back to a house of horrors for us, where we just lost Game 7 in the Cup Finals a few months ago, and Florida's already beaten us at Rogers Place this month or earlier in the season. So if they don't come out with all guns a-blazing tomorrow night, there's going to be a real issue in my eyes. So I think they find a way to take one from Florida, and then we lose in Carolina. That's what I'll go with for now. We're at 10:27. We got a few minutes left, so I do want to make sure I talk about the showdown. So we are at just over $13,000 raised. We're at 13,501 as a group combined, and that's fantastic. But we want to keep pushing for more donations. If you look on my Twitter page at Lots Ryan, or sorry, X, if you want to call it by the real name, I've been putting out videos every week, just kind of outlining some information about SACE's services and the things that they do and why they're such an important charity. And the video I put out tonight was about a public education program they have called Wise Guys that really is specific for grade 9 boys. And I think it's a great program because it kind of targets teenage boys that are just kind of getting into dating and becoming sexually active, and they need this information about consent and how to behave properly and how to prevent instances of sexual assault and sexual violence in their lives. And I think the best way to prevent these things from happening going forward in the future is to educate the youth now. So I think it's a fantastic initiative that they've got going on, and it's a part of a bigger public education program that SACE offers. So head over to SACE's website, sace.ca, if you want to check that out, or check out my account at Lots Ryan and watch that little video. So that's really all I've got for tonight. Well, we're going to go off air on Edmonton Sports Talk very shortly. So I just want to thank those guys for the opportunity to be on. Thanks to Dustin Nielsen, Matt Awanek, Tom Gazzola, and the rest of the crew for that. And we'll stay on YouTube for another couple minutes here while we go around the horn. And I'll give the final word, or give the last word, to Bob tonight, because he was our surprise guest of the night. So I'm going to shut up now and I'll let Patrick talk, and then we'll go from Patrick over to Bob.
Well, I just want to throw out a huge thank you to everybody in the chat there. It was a great discussion tonight. Gave us a lot of great questions to ponder. And I think we're all looking forward to the upcoming trade deadline here. I had a great time with you, Lotsy. Fantastic job hosting the show. You lived up to your title there as producer. Great talking with you, Bob, our second show together. So, great discussion with the goalies. And, looking forward to seeing what happens here. I'll have coverage for you guys on YouTube at the Oilers Fanatic, have the videos posted on Heavy Hockey Network as well. So should be an exciting little while here until March 7th. And who knows, maybe the Edmonton Oilers have some surprises for us coming our way. So donate if you can to SACE. Come out for the Heavy Hockey Showdown March 15th at Downtown Community Arena at Rogers Place. So, yeah, that's all for me. Have a great night, everyone.
Yeah, same thing. Bob Goalie 1 on Twitter there for I'm also in the Heavy Hockey Showdown. We'll be performing out there on the ice. A great cause. We are their number one fundraiser every year for them, and our goal here is pretty lofty, but we're aiming for it. I haven't been pushing it as much as I want to. This is the excuse section for me, just a lot of family and work issues going on, but I'll make a big stretch drive here in these last couple of weeks, and I'm really proud to be associated with it, and really I can't understate how valuable or I can't overstate how valuable the Sexual Assault Center in Edmonton is. I personally know someone that had to use their services, and it was life-changing for them. So this charity does mean a lot to me. Other than that, thanks guys for having me on. It's one of my favorite things to do is come on Oilerslive and talk hockey with you guys. I hope to come on a few more times here during the season for sure. Lotzi, great job producing. Patrick, can't wait to meet you in person, buddy. Love talking hockey with you. And thank you to everybody who's watching, listening. Our Oil family, we're tight. We got this. Don't give up on our boys. We're going to make a run for it again. And what a day and what a parade we could possibly have. Have a good night, everybody.